In your math books, turn to page 74, and that's where this lesson will begin. So by the end of this lesson, your goal is to be able to find the slope of a line. And before I really get into this lesson, I want you to pause it right here and write down the steps that are written here on the left-hand side margin. Okay, so let me explain to you what slope is. So slope is the rate of change between any 2 points on a line. And there's a lot of other ways slope is referred to. Some people will call it change in x over change in y over change in x. And just so you know, change in y is your vertical change. And the reason why is our up and down axis. And then x is our horizontal change because x is our side to side axis. So y is our vertical change, it's how far it goes up, and x is our horizontal change, how far it goes to the side. Another thing about slope, if you look down in the second paragraph here, is slope says how steep a line is. So the steeper a line is, then the higher the number the slope will be. And another way slope is referred to is rise over run. And that's usually what I'll call it, rise over run. And so what rise is essentially our vertical change. And you can see that it's right here in your math book. So rise is how far up is that vertical change, and then run is how far to the right that vertical change is. So what I want to do to introduce to you how to find slope is use this example on your math book on this page, and I'm going to use different points in order to show you another way to find slope. So as you can see the steps, the first step is to find two good points. And a good point is a point on a line where you know exactly what the coordinate is. So for example, this point right here on the line that I just drew, that would not be a good point because we do not know how far over on the x-axis it really is. It could be 1.5, it could be 1.4, it could be 1.3. I'm sorry, that's not even 1. It could be half, like 0.5 or 0.4 or 0.6. We don't know what it is. So that is not a good point. However, this point right here is a good point because it crosses exactly on the coordinate where the x and y coordinates meet. So I know that this coordinate would be 1 unit to the right and then 1 unit up. Okay, so remember your coordinates, the first number is your x-axis and your second number is your y-axis. Okay. This point right here that I drew, that would not be a good point because I don't know exactly how far to the right it is. This point right here would be good because I know exactly what that coordinate would be. I know that it's over 2 and up 3. This one right here isn't good because I do not know how far over to the right it is. And this point right here, this point would be good because I know that it's over 3 and up 5. So good points are points that, here, let me show you. I'm just going to draw right here. A good point is a point that crosses exactly like this on your coordinate plane. If it's like this, that's not good. We don't like that. Or if it's like this, that's not good because we don't know what it is. You want it right here so that you know exactly where it crosses and you know the point. This is good. Okay. And if I'm going over that part really slowly, it's because a lot of students have trouble identifying good points. Actually, since we're right here, let me show you on this graph. Like here, that would not be a good point because we don't know where it's at. This isn't good because we don't know how far up it is. Same thing here. We don't know how far over it is. So those are not good points. Okay, so back to here. So once you have your two good points, you're just going to choose any two of them. And it doesn't matter which two you use. as long as they're good points. So I'm going to use this bottom one and that top one. And so what you want to do is you want to connect them. So you're going to go up and then to the right so that those two good points are connected. And I like to just close it off. It makes kind of like a triangle. Okay, so I did my first step. I found two good points. Next, I need to find the rise over the run. So the rise is how far up we went. So if we look, our first good point starts at 1 and it goes up to 5. So the rise is how tall or I guess you could think as the tall. How long is that line? So if it starts at 1 and ends at 5, then that line is 4. Okay? And you could think of it as subtraction. 5 minus 1 is 4. Now, the next thing that I need to do, let me erase this so I clear it up. The next thing that I need to do is find the run. So the run is how far to the side is this line. So this line starts here at 1 and it ends at 3. So the run is how long is that line? So that is 2. Okay, again, you can think of it as subtraction, 3 minus 1. So to find the slope is rise over run. Okay, so our rise is 4, so that number goes on top. Our run is 2, and that goes on the bottom. Okay, and we always want to reduce that, so that can reduce to 2 over 1, which is the same thing as 2. And you can see that in the example that they got that, but they used 2 points that were closer together. Okay, so as long as you use 2 good points, you will get the correct slope. Go ahead and turn to page 75. And on page 75, we're going to go down to question A. So the first thing that we need to do is graph. So they have a table, so I need a graph. So at week 1, the plant is 1.5. So remember that when we don't see a number on a graph, it's going to be in between. And at 2 weeks, the plant is 3. That is not right. It is 3 centimeters. And at 3 weeks, it is 4.5, which is there. And then at 4 weeks, it is 6 inches. Okay, which is there. And then I'm going to, I'm going to connect. Make sure you use a ruler. I'm using my iPad, so it's really hard for me to use a ruler on here. Okay, so there's my graph. Let me make my points a little bit bigger. Okay, so what I'm going to do, so I need to find, I did my graph. Now I need to find 2 good points. So the 2 good points that I'm going to use are this one right here and this one right here. And the reason why I chose those points is because I know exactly what the coordinates are, and they're like in a whole number. So this coordinate is 2, 3, and that coordinate is 4, 6. Okay, and you guys don't need to write down the coordinate. I just do it so that you see that they're whole numbers and I know exactly where they're at. So now that I found 2 good points, I need to, I like to connect them to find the rise over run. So I start at my bottom point and I go up and then right to my second point. And then I like to just close it off. Okay, so remember that slope is rise over run. So rise is how far up we went. Run is how far to the side we went. So to find the rise, I start at the bottom, and that is at 3. And my rise ends at 6. So that means if we start at 3 and end at 6, that we went up 3 units. So that's my rise. And then for my run starts at 2 and ends at 4. So that means we went over 2 units. So my run is 2. And then this is going to be our final answer. With slope, you do not want to change it to a mixed number. Just make sure that it's reduced. Now, this question is also asking us to explain what it represents. And so the way that you do that is by looking at your units here, okay? So rise represented our y-axis, and that has to do with centimeters. And then x, which is our bottom or our run, represented time in weeks. So what this means is 3 centimeters every 2 weeks. That's what it means. And this has to do with a plant growing. So a plant will grow 3 centimeters every 2 weeks. Okay, next question. Turn to page 76, and we're going to look at question B, but I want you to cross out the number 35 and change it to 30 because I don't like the way that the number 35 works out. So in question B, this is saying that Jessica has a balance of $30 on her cell phone account. So that means she owes $30. And she adds $10 each week for the next 4 weeks. So we need to graph it, find the numerical value of the slope, and interpret it into words. Okay, so at the end of 1 week, she is going to owe $40. And the reason why is because she already owed 30 and then she adds on 10 more dollars. And then so that means after 2 weeks, her balance is going to be $50 because she's going to add 10 more dollars. And at 3 weeks, she's going to owe $60. And then at 4 weeks, she's going to owe $70. So it's going to look something like this. Okay, so in week 1, I think this is where people might get confused. Her balance is the $30 that she had a balance of plus 10. So that's how we get the 40. Okay, and then each week after that, she just adds another $10. Okay, so we did our graph, and I can connect. Okay, and so I need to identify what 2 good points I'm going to use. So I'm going to use this point here and this point here. Okay, because I know exactly what those coordinates are. And so I found my 2 good points. So now I'm going to connect them. All right. So remember, to find slope, it's rise over run. Okay, so rise is how far up did we have to go. So for our rise, we're starting at 40 and ending at 60. Now this is tricky because a lot of students will say that this rise is 1 because they count it by boxes. But each of these boxes goes up in increments of 20. So if we start at 40 and end at 60, then that would be 20. Okay, because it's like you're subtracting. Then we need our run. So our run, if we look down here, is at 1. We start at 1 and we end at 3. So that would be 2. Our run is 2. And then remember that we want to simplify. So this would simplify to 10 over 1, or which is the same as 10. And so what we would the way we would interpret this into words is that, remember, 10 on top comes from money and the 1 on the bottom comes from weeks. So this means $10 per week. Okay, next up, go down to number 1 on guided practice and go ahead and graph. So at 3 boxes, there are 12 fruit snacks. At 5 boxes, there's 20. At 7 boxes, there's 28. So this question is asking us to graph the data and okay. And then we need to, so I need to graph it, find the slope, and then explain what it represents. So I'm going to pick 2 good points, and I'm just going to use the first 2 points that are on here. and I'm gonna connect them. Okay, so remember our slope is rise over run. So rise is how far up did we go? So we started at 12 and ended at 20. So you have to go by those increments. So don't just count boxes. Don't say it's 2. So 20 minus 12 is 8. So our rise is 8. And then our run is how long is this line? So we start at 3 and end at 5. So that is 2. And then I can reduce this to 4 over 1, or which is the same as 4. And then so what this represents is we had packs on the top, right? 4 is packs, and 1 on the bottom is boxes. So what this means is 4 packs per box. All right, next question. Turn to page 77, and I want you to graph question number 1. So those are where your points should be. Okay, so for 2 good points, as long as you can know exactly what the coordinates are, then that's fine. I'm going to choose this one and this one, and I'm going to connect them. Okay, so remember we need rise over run. Okay, so this rise, it started at 100 and it ended at 150. So that means it went up 50 units. And then for our run, we start at 2 and end at 3. So that means that it has a run of 1. So our slope is 50 over 1, but that's the same as 50. And we also need to explain what it means. So the top number, the 50, comes from pages. The bottom number, the 1, comes from time. So this means 50, I guess I could write it here, 50 pages per hour. That's the representation. So as each hour passes, 50 more pages, I'm going to assume are being, oh yeah, it's red. Okay, last one, number 2, go ahead and graph. All right, so now that your graph is done, pick 2 good points. I'm just going to use the first 2 points, and let's connect them. So up and then to the right. So remember to find slope, we need rise over run. Okay, so rise is how far up did we go? So we start at 3, end at 6. So that has a rise of 3. And for our run, we start at 1 and end at 2. So that has a run of 1. And 3 over 1 simplifies to 3. And so 3 is our slope, and we need to interpret it. So 3, that top number, came from feet, and 1 came from yards. So this means 3 feet per yard. That is the interpretation. If you had trouble on this, please don't get discouraged. I know that this is very different than any math that we've been doing. Just a quick review. Make sure that your first step after you have your graph is to find 2 good points. Connect those points and find your rise over your run. Then make sure that everything is simplified.